guys, welcome to another live stream, Ask a Pianist. This is where you get to join and ask questions, music related mostly. Let's see, our next live feed is going to be Saturday next week at the same time. So it's going to be 1 week from now. Just like to mention, the camera is still mirrored, just in case anyone was wondering. Let's see, what else? If you want to stay notified when the streams are going to be, you can click on the bell next to the subscribe button on the channel. That's a good idea. And without further ado, let's start. I'd actually like to address a question that was written to me this week by Dave G. This is a question about trills. Since we've been talking a lot about trills, in the Brahms concerto we have these very complicated trills in octaves that go something like this. So this is from Brahms Concerto in D minor, number 1. Hi guys, hi Simon. You guys can go in and start asking questions right away. We're just going to talk about this Brahms right now. So this is the first concerto. If you haven't heard this concerto, you should listen to it because it's beautiful. And what better thing to do on a Saturday than to spend 40 minutes listening to a Brahms piano concerto. So, but you have these little things sometimes that go something like this. Or before we have this. And it's really annoying because we have to do trills in a kind of octave thing. So so let me just answer this question. What can we do to make it easier? You know, it's true that some people will cheat. There's actually not a bad cheat. Here's the thing. If you have small hands, it's going to be very difficult because you have to go with 4 or 5 in this kind of thing. Which I think is harder than 3/5. But definitely a little bit of rotation is going to help a lot, okay? Now I have very large hands, so I can do sometimes 1-2, 2-5 with this, which I find the easiest. But if you have small hands, you're going to be stuck doing this with 4-5. So rotation is going to help. However, there is one cheat you could do with this. You can go, instead of going, you play just the lower B flat and then the top. It's barely audible. There's a little, we can just barely notice the difference in this. So that's a little trick for this Brahms concerto. Hi Lobo, hi Matthias. Am I having a hard time scrolling up in this chat? Looks like it. I can't wait to get this set up a little better. Okay, well, here we go. Could you talk about the technique of playing above the escapement with control? Yes. Schubert Impromptu. I have ordered the Schubert Impromptu, so I will have them soon. Let's get to that in a second. We'll just talking about Brahms Concerto, how to practice this damn polyrhythms in the right hand, second theme. Great, okay. So this is the second theme, so that's where we're in F major here. Correct me if I'm at the wrong place, Matthias. This is so beautiful. I did actually learn this years ago, about 10 years ago. So, okay, how can we practice this? We have in the left hand, so for those who are joining, we're looking at Brahms Concerto right now in D minor. And in the second theme, we have this sextuplets in the left hand, and in the right hand, these are binary in the left hand, and then we have this in the right hand. So, well, you know, I'm assuming if you're playing this, probably it's not just a problem to be able to play two versus 3 polyrhythms. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think one of the challenges in this is to do the polyrhythms in the right hand, because you have 2 versus 3 in one hand as well as versus the right and left hand. So it's doing that in one hand at the same time. So that's what's hard in here. So how can you practice this? What's also hard is there's a lot of jumps. This sort of, well, it kind of sounds a bum pa pa bum bum, but that's the fake way of doing it. So you can start by doing it the fake way. 2 versus 3 polyrhythms sound like bum pa pa bum bum. So you have. How would this work here? Yum pa pa bum pa, yum pa pa bum pa, as if you had, well, you know, like an 8th note and 2 16th notes. But that's a slightly, not exactly the way 2 versus 3 polyrhythms are, but it's close enough that I don't even know if we'd hear the difference here. Yum pa pa bum bum, yum pa pa bum. But you also have a rotation here. Yum pa pa bum. So that's going to really help. Yum pa pa bum bum. And then the first note. That shouldn't be as much of a problem, but I would look at that way. Same thing. You 1 2 3 4 1. Yum pa pa bum bum. And then if you want to go from doing the fake one to the real one, well, it has to go from yum pa pa bum bum to, let's see, yum pa dum bum ba, yum pa dum bum bum. It's just a slight difference. Yum pa dum bum bum. It's a very slight difference, but it's good enough that probably by doing the 8th and the 2 16ths, you'd be able to do that. So yeah, let me know if that helps. Okay, there was another question before. Could you talk about the thing of playing above the escapement with control in the middle voice in Schubert Impromptu Opus 30 number 3 G flat major? That's now I've just ordered the score, so I'm going to have it very soon. We'll be able to look specifically above the escapement, yeah, so to speak, with control. Well, in general, all of these kind of exercises, really, when you just like take the finger and go like this, repeat the note without triggering the double escapement, then you get that kind of sound. And the more speed you put, the more effective that kind of sound is. The easier it is to not trigger the escapement and get the kind of sound. So if it's a middle voice that I'm not sure where it is in that impromptu, but if you're trying to bring it out, then putting a bit more speed should help with that. I should have the score. I ordered it from Sheet Music Plus, which I've recently discovered, still didn't know about. So I should have it within about 3-4 weeks. How to strengthen the weaker fingers, the weaker hands. Yeah, well, you can practice things that are good for the left hand. That's going to make your left hand work a lot. That's definitely going to strengthen your left hand, assuming that's the weaker hand, if that's what you mean. There's, you know, the exercise for independence of fingers, that would probably help. So this sort of thing. There's a video on that if you're looking for that. That would probably help. I suppose, you know, there's a lot of etudes and exercises, probably more like exercises that would like strengthen things like 4/5, 3/4/5. It also depends how you're doing this and why they're weak. If you can give a specific example of in what music you're having a hard time with those fingers, that would help. Okay, this one's from Simon. I've had a problem with playing mentally relaxed. Okay, is that in a performance or just practicing? Of course, when playing piano, there's a lot of things to think about, phrasing notes, etc. Okay. And it's so hard keeping mentally relaxed when doing this. Do you have any tips? Interesting. Okay, that's an interesting subject. So we have a lot of things to think about. Well, let me know also if this is when you're both performing and practicing. Okay. Um, when you're practicing, I think a lot of the things that you have to stay for sure. There has to be a sharp level of concentration when both performing and practicing. So I suppose the idea is if you can be sort of like more or less relaxed while being still like really focused while performing. A lot of the things that maybe you have to concentrate to do, if you practice them frequently enough, they become automated, so you don't have to think about them anymore. In general, that's how I find it is for me anyway. Is while practicing, I'll have specific things to concentrate on, but after a while, those things become automated. However, performing, it's always good to have something to concentrate on. Like, okay, this is coming up next. I have to remember to make this contrast here. Or, for example, such as you're always thinking about what's coming up next, and you have a little thing to concentrate on without necessarily going overboard, having too much. It's just like every 8 bars maybe there's a little something that that you have to think about. That's very good. That kind of concentration should keep you kind of focused just on those things, and hopefully if you practice enough, the other things that you're trying to integrate into the music, well, they will get integrated in a way that becomes more automated, that you don't have to think about so much. I remember someone saying something about, but with practicing and performing, one of the reasons we practice is so that when you perform, you can just like, perform and not have to think about these things so much. So kind of let go a bit more. So I would say let go, but still have these like points of concentration. Now let's see if you're like feeling overwhelmed while practicing mentally, thinking about phrasing notes. Yeah, I think it's just about like getting things done first. Like if you're still in the note learning phase, then that occupies a lot of mental space, let's say, just to get the right notes down. However, once you get beyond that, that's going to become automated, so you don't have to think about that anymore. That's why it's so easy to work on musical things and phrasing when you know all the notes and you know the piece very well. You're not in the note learning phase of the piece. So maybe try to get some of those things out of the way first, like learn the notes really well. And then maybe gradually, as you're learning the notes, you start to do things like, dynamics and phrasing and how you want to do that, so that you're already incorporating it in. And then eventually, well, that's one less thing to think about. Hi, next gen. Hi, Robert. Hi, everyone who's joining. Feel free to ask any questions here. We got a question from Next Gen on Rock 3. How cool. I love questions on Rock 2 and Rock 3. Rock 4 would be great too. If any of you don't know Rock 4, that's fantastic. Fantastic. So I am playing Rachmaninoff Piano Concerto number 3, just begun. I'm at the end of page 4. Very good. How do I? That's where the easy part ends. How do I practice most efficient? Well, let's see. How to practice this piece most efficiently? That's a good question, because this is such a massive piece. There's. Let's get the score out here. I want to get the right one. The one that has the good stuff in it. Well, it's such a massive piece. This is like a 40-minute concerto, and it's really long. So I think one of the things, first of all, it's going to take a lot of patience. It takes at least a year to learn if you're like working really well. So you probably like are you learning the whole thing or just one movement? Because that's you were just finishing Beethoven Moonlight Sonata third movement. Okay, a big jump. Yeah. Yeah, that is a big jump. Well, maybe, focus on one movement, learning one movement, because then you can, learn the other ones another year, let's say. This is a very complex piece technically, that's for sure. So if you don't feel like you're ready to do it, well, you can always learn, let's say the second concerto is a little bit technically easier. Um, you could probably just start to like memorize things as soon as possible so that you're able to focus on the technique. I remember when I wanted to learn like the 12 or 24 Chopin etudes, one of my teachers was saying, there's nothing in the etudes that you don't have in Rock 3. Everything is there. So all the technique is very important, you know. Honestly, like I remember again when I was learning this, playing it for Avidus Kuyumjan, he was saying some quote by Richter, who was saying, when someone asked him, "How do you learn your music? That's so difficult and so long," and he would say one bar at a time, as ridiculous as it sounds, but that's what he'd do. So that's definitely something to consider. If you're always like trying to play through the entire concerto or even just the entire first movement, you never get anything done. So you have to like focus on a small section. So if you're doing that, that's very good. But boy, you're at the end of the fourth page. That's where the fun begins after. So what I would say is better have really good technique to do this kind of stuff, because it's really complicated if you don't. Like stuff like this. Those kind of things. If you're not using the rotation there, that's going to be hard. Same thing here. It's very important to go this way when you have more than one note at a time. So I think there's a few tricks there also, because there's some notes you can take with the other hand. The F. So you can do that sort of stuff. Again, when you have this whole piece is so well written that if you really know what to do with a technique, then it's going to be a heck of a lot easier. So we're talking about Rock 3 for everyone who's joined. Any more questions on Rock 3? Bring it on. So, okay, and let's go to another question. I have a problem with pinky. I'm left-handed. Problem with pinky. Okay, yes, because we were talking about weak fingers. Well, here's the thing with the pinky. This is extremely weak, right? But this, if you're doing this kind of movement with the arm, this is actually connected to all of this. So the fifth finger becomes very strong, actually, if we play it more on the side with rotation, not so much working the finger like this. So that's sometimes a problem, because we're having a weakness because we're doing this, and maybe we have something like this, but we're doing this like this. We're making the finger work, and it doesn't have to be so hard if you're just using this. Let's see. One thing I need to figure out how to share this video on Facebook, because I always forget to do that. Let's see if I can do it while we're at it. Take a little Facebook sharing break. Here we go, live now. Okay, and let's go on to another question here. Hi, Dave S. You're learning the whole thing, Rock 3. Good. Okay. You know, another thing to consider if you're learning the whole thing is, do you want to start with the first movement? You know, if you've already started it, maybe do one movement at a time. This was one of the things I did, was I tried learning the whole thing at once, and I found that so much time was wasted because I was just too spread out, you know. So you kind of have to focus on particular parts. That's what I would say. But for sure, the second movement is very difficult. So if you do start looking at that, that's very good. Uh, Dave S. Dave G. Sorry, forgive if this has been covered before, though I'm curious as to your approach to the opening of Ravel's Ondine. Oh yeah, we haven't talked about that. That would be very interesting. Gieseking suggested grouping 3 plus 3 plus 2 with a slight lift like slurs. Yeah, that's really interesting, actually. We can talk about this for a while. To assist in this, yes. Okay. Obviously, any tension will be lethal. And oh, yes. And hopefully, a very responsive piano. Exactly. Very well said. Let's get that Gaspard that I need and have a look at Ondine here. There are different ways of grouping this. 3 plus 3 plus 2. I'm not sure exactly how he did that, but I remember going through a variety of different ways. And now, let's see if I can remember those, or at least the one that worked the best. What I found helped really was to go, so kind of grouping it like this. So you kind of have this as a pickup. I think I would just leave it at that. You know, I had several different options shown to me, and I think I've forgotten the ones that were just too confusing and different, didn't work. But at least this one is it's kind of like you're preparing the middle of the bar. So you have the first beat up to the fifth note, let's say, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then you're using the next three notes as a pickup to the third beat. And then you can keep doing that. So it's just the first one that's different. Now, there was one way of doing this. Where you would always group after something that's repeated. So you'd have... stuff like that. I just find it really confusing. You can actually practice this way, and eventually, you know, you kind of don't listen to that anymore, and it does become imperceptible. I think that's what you mean. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. I see. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1. Yeah, that is a way of doing it. See, this other way is similar. You would do 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3. But it's so confusing to do that. It does work, but it's very confusing. So this I found to be the best. There's another thing you can do. I remember seeing Bob McDonald at Juilliard teaching this as well, and he would always talk about having this kind of flexibility in the wrist here, and that's really good because it makes the hand a lot more supple, as you're saying. If it's tight, well, this becomes impossible, you know. So, and it was in a specific place when you'd have these repeated notes that there was something here going forward. He would always talk about this, which I love, going forward, which kind of brings the wrist up because the arm is coming forward, and so. Which is, it's so fast, it's kind of hard to do that. But if you just have this flexibility in the wrist. So we're talking about Ondine here, Ravel's Ondine. If you guys don't know this piece, it is so beautiful. You know, you have this sort of a water-like figuration, and if you haven't read the poem that goes with it, you should, because there's a whole story behind this piece, you know. And then you have this singing voice coming in. Which is some water nymph who's trying to seduce a man. But you always have this figuration throughout the entire piece until you get to the end. There's like a few bars where it disappears actually. But that is one heck of a beautiful piece. Hi, Matt Sweet. Gonna get to your question in a second. Hi, Christo. So, okay. The end of Scherzo of Brahms Sonata number 2 has trills with 4 and 5. Okay, like the concerto that we were talking about. Although those aren't octave trills, I think. I'm not sure. But there the cheat won't work because the thumb plays melodic stuff. Okay, I see. What then? Well, I don't have the specific example with me, but what you should be doing, let's say you have something like when you have this sort of thing, go practice going in, forward when you play the thumb. So if I do it in the left hand so you see better, let's say we have... I'm always bringing the thumb, not playing half as much with the finger as much as just pushing it forward. That should help with those sort of things a lot. That's kind of like Beethoven does that sort of thing a lot. So going in should help a lot, as well as probably a little bit of rotation. The strength is even the stretch is even a 9th or a 10th. Yeah, that could be. Like this. I'm making this up because I don't have the score, but bringing the thumb in the front really helps with these things. A lot more than just trying to do it with rotation alone. You've listened to Rock 3 like a billion times and want to play it because it's the most difficult jag, the most difficult jag. Yeah, that's for sure. Well, good luck with that. In Ondine, Alfred Masterwork Edition indicates that starting in measure 5, the right hand pattern should remain the same as before. Yes, and that Ravel indicated this to people who had performed it. Yeah, that's correct. There's some corrections to do in that. I'm not sure if I should learn the corrected version or learn it as it is traditionally written. Learn the correct version. Bar 5. So what happens is, I think it's written properly in this edition. Is it? Again, see, I can't remember this, but that is correct. So instead of going, you go. Learn the correct version, not the way it's written. I don't know why people don't fix this. You know, there's another place. I had a bad photocopy done of this score, which is some of the pages are upside down. You have this again, actually. You know where you have on the 5th page where you have this. Well, it's again the same as before and not. So you also have to rewrite that part. Let me try this again so I can remember what I used to do. have to rewrite those as well. There's a lot of tricks in this piece if you're looking for like specific ideas, you know, like you can do this. A lot of people do this. This sort of stuff, you know, there's really a lot of places we can. There's also some people like to go like that. Take things in the left hand. That's possible. So yeah, do learn the corrected version. That's a very good idea. You're going to learn Rock 3 in order, one step at a time. Okay, good. Good luck. Would you mind providing practice tips with Rock Moments Musicaux number 4? Interesting. I'm struggling getting both hands together in measures 15 and 17. Okay, let's have a look at this. I think I have those pieces, but I've never played them. So let's see. Here's the sonata. Actually, I'm not sure where they are. Oh, here they are. No, those are Etude Tableau. Yeah, I don't have the Moments Musicaux number 4. That's another thing I'll have to order. Accuracy with octaves and left-hand jumps. Okay, yes, my piano is, it's not the piano that's inverted, it's the stream that's inverted. It's a problem that's been going on for a few weeks. Will be fixed soon. Yeah, I wish I could help you with that one, Dave, but I don't have the score and I really don't know the piece. So again, like, you know, once I have a second device, hopefully I can read the scores off an iPad. That'll make it easier. Yeah, try that with Brahms Sonata. I answered your question too, Dave G, about Brahms Concerto in the beginning of the video. I don't know if you heard that. Okay, watched a video of Daniel Trifonov the other day where he played Liszt etudes. He has his fingers on the piano with the fingertips bent upwards. What the heck? Fingertips bent upwards like this? I don't know, man. You know, everyone has a different hand. I notice, like, somehow, like, you know, some people do this. Like, I find often women tend to have an easier time. Not easier time. I don't necessarily recommend it bending here in the knuckles, but so you mean he did like stuff like this or like that? Well, he's a méchant pianiste, as we say in French, which means he's really good. So it would be very hard to criticize him, but it doesn't mean he's perfect either, eh? Everyone does some weird stuff. Daniel plays so well, but seems super awkward at the piano. He does weird postural movements. Hurts my neck watching him. Okay. Have you played the entire Rock 3? Yes, I've played the entire Rock 3. Opening of Schumann's Chrysleriana. Yeah, I don't know if it was you. Someone asked a question about that last time, actually. I just ordered the score to that as well, so we can talk about it. Should have it in about a month. That would be really fun to look at. So, do you guys have any other questions about any other stuff? What other pieces are you playing? He is damn good. Yeah, he is very good. Just wondering about his technique. I haven't watched him in a while. I'd have to have a good look at him. You know, I don't even know that I'm what at least like what kind of a judge I am on these things. Ballade number 1. Okay, that's Brahms Ballade number 1. Nah, Chopin. And Opus 10 number 2. Yeah, we've looked at that a little bit. Ballade number 1, 10 number 2. I see. Okay. Well, okay, cool. Do you have any questions in Ballad number one? Is there something that's really difficult for you in there? 10 number two, well, I've given a few ways of practicing this. You can repeat the small notes. That's the ones that are played with the thumb and the second finger. You're always repeating that. You can always find ways to sort of like jazz up your practice a little bit. Let's say you're playing this. Okay, we'll use this as an example of how you can use grouping and rhythm and just like I call it jazzing up your practice to have a better technical mastery of it. Let's say you have this. You're learning this. So that's one thing you can do. You can go repeating these while holding that. Another thing you can do is oh. See, that's kind of hard. So that's really good. That's a good practice. You might do it like the way I just did it, but probably what would be much better is to wait longer. So you have time to relax and kind of prepare for what's coming up. Now, what else could you do? Try to invent more things that you can do. See, one thing you could do is this. See, I haven't done that one, obviously. So by doing it, I would probably just feel much more technically mastered than this, which is okay. But I don't know how secure I would feel. I've never performed this piece. So I would probably start practicing it that way. You have to look at those things. So when you have problems with it, then that's kind of good because that gives you something to work on. So I would just keep working on the places I have a hard time doing that. That's quite a difficult one. So that's another idea. Now what else could you do? Okay, we talked about this. Now you can also do those, let's say, twice a bar instead of four. So you'd go like this. Then you could do them instead of on the first and third beats, on the second and fourth. So I'm sure if I was playing this, that would help immensely. What else can we do with this? Well, let's see. What else could you possibly do with this? I don't know how useful that is. But after you do each one of these sort of practices, maybe take like, 4 bars, do that sort of practice, and then come back to normal and see if it's like making a difference in what you're doing. It should make a difference. He had longer fingernails and plays very much on the iPad. This was Trifonov? Apparently practices in the swimming pool to feel resistance to stimulate at the piano. I heard that. That's really funny. Everyone has their little things. I can't say I do anything like that. Any tips on, hold on, struggling? Okay, what's going on here? Opus 53 what? The Ballad number one? Still struggling with Beethoven Sonata, Opus 10, number one, second movement, the fast runs. Yeah, that's another one I think I ordered. What key is that one in? That's not the E flat one. That's Opus 7, right? Opus 10, number one. Yeah, I still have yet to get the score to that, but that's good that you bring it back up. That's just a good reminder. I'm getting the Opus 7 and I have to get the Opus 10 as well. I just don't have those early sonatas. Opus 53 Polonaise, right? Opus. Any tips on the Opus 53 Polonaise left-hand octave section? I've finished quote the piece, but I still struggle there. So, what's your struggle? Is it getting the right notes, or is it an endurance thing that you don't have the endurance to get through it? This is something that we've talked about a few times. You have some sort of wheel here, so how could I say this in a way that would be different and see when you're coming from the B flat back to the E, that's when you go up, and then the other ones are you're more down here with the wrist. You have to learn to do how to do this wheel when doing obviously arpeggios, but also octaves. It's going to help to have some flexibility here in the wrist. The other thing is just to stick as close as possible to the keys. Try to do this with moving as little as possible. And then of course you have... Is that it? So the closer you're staying to, let's say, where the black keys meet the white keys, the easier it is. Using 4 on a black key also at the bottom, that's going to help because you're closer to that. You can get the 4 aligned while the 5 is still playing. So that should help those sort of things. Endurance, exactly. Okay, that was definitely. I think that's the problem everyone has on this is being able to get through it. So focus as much as you can on relaxation because the tendency when we have octaves like this is to go, and you get tired very quickly because of the tightness in the arm. So you can kind of, find a speed that's a little slower where you're like very relaxed, and then try to raise the speed gradually with maintaining the same amount of relaxation. And you'll find that if you play very lightly and just go like that, not like this, right? Just as light as possible. This is a good way to practice it actually. Practice it without playing it. So now I'm literally doing the same thing as if I would play it, except I'm not pushing into the keys enough to make them sound. I'm actually just going on the surface. So practice that sort of thing and see if your arm gets tired there, because then you can probably make more adjustments to that. And then just go in very lightly. Well, you'll find that you're moving a lot less if you're not going like this. You're playing from the keys as much as possible, and the flexibility in the wrist should help diminish some of the tension that you might be having in there. I think that's the best thing you can do for endurance on that. Also, don't play too loud. I have a question about music notations. I'm looking at Chopin, Opus 72, number 1. What is that? That's one of the that's one of the waltzes that like wasn't published, or is that a nocturne? Which one is that, Dave? And my partition shows that the left hand is legato for the most part, but for some measures it doesn't show it as legato. Is it meant to be interpreted differently? Yeah, could you tell me what piece that is? It's Nocturne. Is that the C sharp minor one? I think that's the one I don't have because it's not in this Dover edition. I have to print it out actually. Yeah, that's the one Nocturne they didn't put in there. Again, I should have it by the next live stream. I should have that one printed out so we could look at it specifically. But Chopin is very unprecise and hard to read as for what he writes. You kind of have to read a little bit between the lines for what he wanted to do. Even the stuff he wrote, half the time when he played it, he didn't even do it that way. So the left hand is legato, and for some bars it doesn't show it as legato. It could be not non-legato, possibly. Again, I'm not sure exactly where the example is. We'd have to look at that. It's possible. However, if it's the exact same thing as what was there before legato, there's a good chance it's still legato. That's the E flat major one? Oh, that's great. No, C minor. Okay, I see. Uh-huh. Is that the... something like that? Either way, I will order them at some point. Any tips on the ballade of the third exposition of third Chopin ballade? I find it very hard to stay accurate in the right hand. Hi Nick, welcome welcome to the stream. Third ballade, okay, that's the exposition. Where exactly is that? That's the middle section. Could you be a little more precise, starting where? Because we can look at this. I have to like come up with a list for these books, find out which things are in which ones. Chopin ballade. Let's look at Chopin ballade number 3. We're gonna look at this. Would be funny if I actually don't have it. I think I do. Ballade in F major, is that the one? No, that's the second one. I hope I have the third ballade in here. I thought I did. I'm always playing from photocopies and things like that. You know what? I don't see it. Is it possible I don't have this? Damn! I need to buy Chopin ballades and scherzos as well. So I'm not always using these damn photocopies. That's too bad. I don't have the third ballade. I thought I did. So much music to buy. I just ordered like $100 of scores on Sheet Music Plus. So yeah, I think we're gonna look at something else. Hi Joel, glad you could make it. Brahms Intermezzo, Opus 118 too. That's nice. Let's look at that. Just gonna have a little second peek here. See if I didn't miss that Chopin ballade. I was sure I had it. Apparently I don't. Okay, Brahms, Opus 118, number 2. If any of you don't know this piece, go listen to it. Brahms, it's 6 pieces, Opus 118, and this is the second one, which is really beautiful. So it's not just, it's almost like not enough to just say that it's really beautiful. But there's actually some idea here that we don't know if it's exactly true, but someone did say this who is quite credible. I can't remember who, but these pieces were so personal for Brahms that if he knew they had been published, he wouldn't have written them. So can you imagine? How would you pedal the duet part from bar 51? Interesting. Okay, so this is when we get into... Well, let's see, 49, 50, 51 specifically, or this whole section? You have to, see what doesn't work, at least with the pedal. So what I would do is just start with a lot of pedal. You can't do that. here, or, and sometimes that sounds very good. Then it sounds like the way it's written with those rests. So you would do that to bring out the dotted notes in the left-hand voice, so they won't blur. Well, play them in the front. So it's not just this playing, but you're using the whole arm, bringing the whole arm forward to bring the thumb or the second finger. That's going to bring them out like crazy. If you play it like this, and not going to get it with your finger, but rather using the arm to bring this up. You don't have to bring that out. This shouldn't come out. It's just going forward like this, and never like that. Just in. So, see, when you finish this wheel here, we can kind of make little adjustments to our wheel instead of going. Don't worry so much about the wheel. It's about preparing a movement so that you're bringing the thumb into the piano this way. So you can kind of, maybe you could practice like this. Just play that melody with whatever fingering you use and going in every time on those notes. Same thing here. I like 5-2 here, but if you have a very straight second finger, then you can go get that sound a little better. Again, going forward. The other thing you can consider here is to not bring that melody so much the first time, because this is going to repeat 3 times. So you could do it the second time or the third time. You can do it when it comes back a little bit louder the next time. That's a possibility. See, he writes piano on the top, at least in this edition, which is going to be totally backwards if I show you, but there's, on the right hand, he wrote piano. So you could probably do more of that inner voice when you do it the third time. That should help a lot. Okay, guys, we seem to be at the end of our questions for today. A little shorter. Our next stream is going to be in a week from today. Don't forget to like the video also and subscribe if you like the channel. If you want to stay notified about the activity, the live activity, you can click the bell next to the subscribe. Mendelssohn Piano Sonata. Ooh, yeah, that's a good stuff. Yeah, I don't have that score either, Joel. That would be interesting to look at. I think I know which one you're talking about, though. Maybe another time. So that's it. That ends the live stream. Check out Patreon if you want to support the channel. If you have ideas for things you'd like to see on Patreon, please let me know. I'm always curious to know what it is you guys would like to see. Until then, thanks for joining. Peace out. Happy practicing. Have a great weekend.